ladies and gentlemen, after nearly 2 months of absency and not putting out a single video, Joe's Nose Basketball is back. I'm Ben Schauder, joined by Giacomo Imperiali, Nate Perez, and Matt Friedman. And guys, I mean, how do we feel? It's good to finally be back on screen.
Real excited. It's been a long time. It's good to be back.
Yeah, and there's a lot for us to talk about. Trade deadline madness, mania, some all-star snubs that we want to throw out there. So let's just kick it right off. But before we do that, I do want to ask Fried, we do it all in all the past episodes. We got to keep it going, keep the consistency. Who are your top 5 teams in the NBA at this point?
So my top 5 teams for the rest of the year in the NBA, it's going to be a little bit controversial. I'll start with 5. At number 5, I got the Memphis Grizzlies. I think that the roster is there. It's starting to come together. It was a bit of an underwhelming trade deadline, and the inability to close games from this team is concerning, but I think the talent and the roster is undeniable, so they'll slide in at number 5. I have the Milwaukee Bucks at number 4. I mean, they've already brought home a championship before. Giannis could be, the best player in the league right about now, so he's in that conversation, so I think 4 is good for them. I have the Denver Nuggets at 3. I'm a big skeptic of the Denver Nuggets, but, I mean, you just look at what they've done to this point. They might have the best player in all of basketball right now, leading their squad in Nikola Jokic. So I think number 3, I'm a little low on them, but I have to put them at number 3 based on how they've been playing. And number 2, I have the Boston Celtics. There, seems to be that they're the lead contenders for the NBA Finals, but I think since this Kevin Durant trade, the Phoenix Suns have to slide in at number 1. This is, in my opinion, an absolute super team, and this is completely different from the Brooklyn Nets super team where it was just 3 superstars thrown together and let's see how you can do. No, this is Kevin Durant. He's one of the most gifted scorers of all time, paired with Devin Booker, who's another extremely gifted scorer, very young. And then you match it with CP3, great ball distributor, and then DeAndre Ayton, who's a very good center in the paint. So this is an actual well-rounded team. It's a super team, and I don't see how they can't be the best team in the league from this point on until the end of the year.
Yeah, Jock, I saw you making some faces over there. What didn't sit right with you about that list?
Nothing didn't sit right to me, Ben. I'm very happy with the list. The only thing I would complain about is with the Kevin Durant stuff. I still think the Celtics should be the best team, but I mean, again, when you trade for one of the best players in the sport with the roster that the Phoenix Suns already have, it's very close. But to me, what the Celtics have shown so far, I think they should be 1 and Phoenix should be 2. But 5 through 3, I really liked, so I'm not really hating on it at all today. I like it a lot.
And Freeman, before we move on, I do want to bring up 2 teams that both have a better record than your 5 seed Memphis Grizzlies right now: the Philadelphia 76ers and the Cleveland Cavaliers. So what did it for the Grizzlies over those 2 teams?
See, I'm very big on the Cleveland Cavaliers. I've been big on them all year. I don't see – I think this is when we're going to see the Grizzlies take a step up. I mean, they've kind of formed into this villain role in the NBA, and I think that the villain role plays in the playoffs. When you play with a chip on your shoulder, that's kind of from this point on in the season when the games start to get tough, when it starts to go down to the wire, the villain, having that confidence throughout your team, it really, that seems to be what carries teams when we get down the stretch in the season. So that's why I'm going to have them, because they're very similar records as of now, but I think the Grizzlies roster and their well-rounded roster compared to the 76ers and the Cavaliers, I think it's more well-rounded. I think it's better suited for the playoffs and for the end of the regular season stretch.
All right, so we'll get right into the main event. It was absolute madness early in the morning. Just the other day, the NBA trade deadline was here and passed. People are moving all over the place. They're still moving. But for right now, let's go over our winners and losers from the trade deadline. Nate, I'll throw it to you first. Who is your winner?
I'm going to go with the Los Angeles Lakers as my winner. And, LeBron James, I will say, is my winner because, LeBron finally has the help he really needs. And also they also filled the void, which was their rebounding. Jared Vanderbilt is a great rebounder that can help assist Anthony Davis in the paint. They also got off of Russell Westbrook's contract, which now means that LeBron can go out and sign someone before, I believe it's like, I think they have 15, 20 million in cap now because Russ and Pat Bev are gone. And D'Angelo Russell is a efficient player this year, and Mo Bamba is also shooting 40%. So that helps their three ball, and they also help their rebounding, which were two very strong downsides for the Lakers. And LeBron now has what he needs to get the 5th ring.
Jock, how about you?
Yeah, so I'm gonna be the same way. I know Matt's looking at Nate, and I'm not, and that's not really the reason why I think the Lakers are the winners this trade deadline. The reason why I think that the Los Angeles Lakers are the winners of this trade deadline is this not only set them up for this year, but for the future. Every single player other than D'Angelo Russell they acquired in this trade deadline is under 26 years old. Jared Vanderbilt, a young wing with tons of potential. And Nate didn't even mention him earlier in the trade deadline. First guy they traded for, Rui Hachimura, who I am huge on. He just needs to figure out his stroke from three-point range. He can be a very good scorer in this league. Very, very young. The Mo Bamba for Pat Bev trade was super even. Mo Bamba is a better center than Thomas Bryant, so that was a big upgrade in my opinion that the Lakers needed to make. And, man, I love D'Lo. D'Lo's quietly putting up 18 a game this year. I will advocate for D'Lo for forever. I love D'Angelo Russell. Great fit, much better fit than Russell Westbrook. Not to mention they get rid of that awful contract, and the Jazz are going to eat some of that contract up. So the Lakers in this trade deadline get rid of their two oldest guys, other than LeBron, obviously, who really weren't making as big of an impact as I think other players made. They get tons of young potential, get rid of one of the worst contracts in the NBA at the moment, and set them up for the future and for this year. So I don't understand how this Lakers front office, I do not like the Lakers. I haven't liked what they've done lately, but they really hit it out of the park, in my opinion, this trade deadline. They made all the necessary moves they need for now and for the future.
I'm going to have to absolutely disagree. I think this Lakers front office, they need to pick a direction. You talk about this contract. Russell Westbrook is a free agent after this year. There is no more contract. The only thing this contract was holding this organization back from was trading for a big-time name like Kyrie Irving, like Kyrie Irving to bring in and pair with LeBron James. They did not do that. They did not bring in a big-ticket player to be able to help them make a real finals push. They are nowhere near a team that can make a finals push. And then if you're looking at, the future, they still have very little future. They might have geared a little bit towards the future based on this trade deadline, but I don't understand. This isn't a very loaded team for the future, and they have zero chance of making the NBA Finals. I can list the Suns, Grizzlies, Nuggets, Mavs, Pelicans, Clippers, and Warriors all undoubtedly, and I mean you could throw the Kings in there also, undoubtedly have a better chance to run the table in the West than the Lakers. They have no shot to do anything in the playoffs this year. D'Lo replacing Russell Westbrook, that is an upgrade having D'Lo, but Russell Westbrook, people are underrating how he has been throughout this year. I mean, he's been a little inefficient, but the numbers are just a step down from D'Angelo Russell. The slightly less efficient, and the numbers are just slightly worse. But I mean, Russell Westbrook wasn't bad on this team. It was a bad fit, but he wasn't a bad player for this team. You cleared Russell Westbrook's cap space, but then made no moves after. If you dealt Russell Westbrook and then in return or in a separate trade, you got Kyrie Irving, you got that big time guy, then yeah, okay, that's a great trade deadline. But them dumping a Russell Westbrook's contract, what does that do for them? It does nothing.
Jock?
Yeah, so again, the future thing is like, I'm not saying that this team has the brightest future in the league. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that the Lakers front office I really like what they did. Again, I never said that they're going to win the finals this year. I don't get what Nate's talking about there. They're not going to be in contention for finals ring. They'll be the normal playoff team. Maybe they can make a little run, sure. But I'm just saying I like all the moves that the Lakers did. They made the most noise out of any NBA team in the trade deadline. And there was not one move that they made where I questioned. I liked every move that they made. Again, I'm not a big Pat Bev guy. I love the Pat Bev from Mo Bamba trade. Mo Bamba is 26 years old, a good center. He was on one of the worst teams in the league in Orlando, and he really has some room to shine here with the Lakers. I think Mo Bamba could really continue to grow as a player. I'm all over him, and I really like every move that this Lakers team made. They didn't get that superstar, but that's why I think them and this one other team that I think we'll talk about a little bit later are very, very close, but I'm going to give the Lakers the edge because I really, truly think
I would also like to add that the Lakers essentially traded Hachimura for Kendrick Nunn straight up because Thomas Bryant trade was 3 seconds, which is what they gave up for Rui Hachimura, if I'm not mistaken.
And I want to add one other thing real quick, Ben, and then we can let Matt talk. The
ahead.
Lakers, in all this madness, gave up 1 first-round pick in the next 5 years. You look at all these other teams give up multiple first-round picks. Every single trade that the Lakers made.
The Lakers, okay, wait.
That's where you lose me.
The Lakers don't have a first-round pick till 2020.
Obviously, didn't give up any first-round picks.
I'm just saying they didn't give up any picks that they didn't already
They
have.
also didn't get any sort of strong caliber player. They got D'Angelo Russell, but they dealt Russell Westbrook. They didn't really get anyone good. So for them to not give up first-rounders, like obviously they didn't get anyone in return. You bring up how Mo Bamba's a strong center. My problem is they dumped Thomas Bryant for next to nothing. He's a 25-year-old, extraordinarily efficient from the field, giving you 12 and 7 a game. That's a solid player, 25 years old. Why are we dumping him for nothing? The Mo Bamba trade I liked, but why are we getting rid of Thomas Bryant for no reason? That's what I don't understand. I don't think the Lakers had –
Thomas Bryant wanted out of Los Angeles, though, because he wasn't playing because of Anthony Davis. Because he wasn't starting. That's the problem.
So then, but this is my point. How is Mo Bamba going to grow if he's just going to slide right in the role Thomas Bryant had? So what are we talking about with this development of young players? Mo Bamba is going to have less of a role than Thomas Bryant had in Los Angeles. My problem with picking the Lakers as the winner of the trade deadline, I think there's just so many other teams, or there's a handful of other teams that did such a great job. They completely revamped their rosters. They can make finals pushes this year, or they rebuilt for the future. The Lakers didn't do either of those two things, so I don't understand how they could be the winner of the NBA trade deadline.
Yeah, and Nate, I mean, you mentioned your winner was LeBron James, and they just had Russell Westbrook, got rid of him. Now they're getting D'Angelo Russell. How do you like the fit for D'Angelo Russell and the Lakers, especially with guys like AD and Bron?
They could shoot. Like, the people they added are all good three-point shooters. Well, minus Jared Vanderbilt. I'm not sure how good he's doing relatively from three this year, but D'Angelo Russell, and then Mo Bamba are both shooting, I believe, 40% from threes, and they lack that. Jared Vanderbilt makes up for the rebounding department, which they lacked because Anthony Davis was really just by himself, and then he got injured, so they were missing that heavy part. Thomas Bryant made up for it for the small time he was with the Lakers, but they still really lacked that when it comes to rebounding.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll be honest, I'm going to agree with Friedman. I think there's better teams that could have been picked for the winner, but I mean, I do think the Lakers benefited like ever so slightly. But Friedman, I'll throw it over to you for your winner.
Yeah, right off the Chadwick. I mean, really quick, that's my point. I really think the Lakers, it wasn't bad, but there's so many other teams that did a great job, and them being picked as the winner is just wrong. The clear winner of the NBA trade deadline is the Brooklyn Nets, without a doubt. They started the deadline with zero control of their first-round picks. They were all with the Rockets from the James Harden trade. There was a completely failed super team. They had Harden, they had Kyrie, they had KD. It was blowing up in their faces. They needed to move this franchise in a new direction. That's exactly what they did. Essentially, they traded Kevin Durant and received 4 first-round picks, 5 second-round picks, Cam Johnson, Mikal Bridges. That is an unbelievable haul. Cam Johnson, very good, young shooter. Mikal Bridges is one of the most underrated players in the NBA, probably the best wing defender in the NBA, giving you around 15 a game, good shooter. I mean, Mikal Bridges is one of the best 3-and-D players in the NBA, true 3-or-D wings in the NBA. You get him, you get 4 first-rounders, 5 second-rounders. That's absurd. This is a jump start to a rebuild for the Brooklyn Nets. And this is where I don't understand taking the Lakers. The Brooklyn Nets had a dumpster fire of an organization. They had no direction. And then now you compare them and what they did to change the direction of their franchise, compare it with the Lakers' pretty mediocre trade deadline. I don't know how you could take the Lakers over the Brooklyn Nets.
Glock, your thoughts?
I'll tell you right away. The Brooklyn Nets just traded for a bunch of glorified role players. Dorian Finney-Smith is the headliner in the Mavericks trade, 29 years old. Cam Johnson's a very good player, but the supposed star you're getting in return for Kevin Durant, a top 10 player in the league, is Mikal Bridges, who's 26 years old. He's shown a lot, but the Brooklyn Nets could have gotten a lot more for Kevin Durant. I did not like what the Nets did at all.
No. Okay, well, hold up. I would like to say.
What more could they have gotten? They got 4 first-round picks and a young
I'm just saying the
star.
direction the team's moving. they have no answer right now. They're just a bunch of glorified role players. Those first-round picks are over the next 4 to 5 years. Cool. Like, you don't know how first-round picks are going to pan out.
Okay, this is
Mikal Bridges might be like he might not be the all-star everyone talks about, but he's definitely
I don't think anyone talks about him as an all-star. He is one of the best defenders in the NBA and is still giving you a very efficient 17 a game.
Isn't he also shooting like he shoots like 47% from three?
I'm just saying that I'm not a fan of. I don't hate it, but I'm saying I'm not a fan of the direction.
Glorified role player, did you not? This is a guy.
Just a bunch of glorified role players. They're just above average role players.
Every single player on the team. Above average role player gives you 17 a game as one of the best defenders in the league. That's
above the supposed headline best player on the team now.
Well, no. Well, who said that? I never said that.
Well, who's going to be better than him on the Brooklyn Nets, Matt?
What do you mean? Who's gonna be better?
Than Mikal Bridges on the Brooklyn Nets. The whole team
is just your argument. What are you talking about?
I think Friedman is trying to argue for the future right now for Brooklyn.
That's what
I think that's what his whole debate is about.
They got 4 first-round picks.
Their entire situation needed to be blown up, and what they did is they took a mistake. That super team they made was a mistake, and now they have 4 first-rounders that they just got for Kevin Durant. They have a young Mikal Bridges who's very good. They have a young Cam Johnson who's a solid player. That's a role player. And they have 5 second-round picks. They needed to be blown up. Kevin Durant was going to want out. Kyrie already wanted out. They needed to make those moves, and they got a haul. So to say that you don't think that they glorified role player for Mikal Bridges blows my mind. That is unbelievable. And I don't know how much more you're getting for Kevin Durant than Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, and 4 first-round picks. You're not going to get much more than that.
I think the fact that the Suns did not have to give up Chris Paul, Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton just baffles me.
Okay, no one. They never would have made that deal. Why would then? You're looking at the Phoenix Suns blowing up their franchise.
Well, no, I could see DeAndre Ayton getting traded.
That's what I thought.
DeAndre Ayton does not fit in the Brooklyn Nets. Why would the Brooklyn Nets want DeAndre Ayton?
Yeah, they already have a center, Nicholas Claxton.
Claxton's a great young center. Like, you got to look at the Brooklyn Nets. What they got? They were able to send Kevin Durant out west, and in return, they got a young star, a young, very solid role player, and 4 first-rounders. What more do you want? They're not getting a better deal from anyone else in the league, and everybody was shopping for Kevin Durant. So you know that was the best deal they had on the table. Clearly, it was a great deal. They took it. I don't see how the Brooklyn Nets aren't the clear winner of the NBA trade deadline.
Again,
how did the Lakers do better than the Brooklyn Nets in the trade deadline?
Lakers moves were better than what the Nets did, in my opinion.
What did the Lakers do? What did the Lakers do?
The Lakers traded for a bunch of young floor spacers. They got D'Angelo Russell, who fits their system much better.
Role players? You want to talk about glorified role players? Who did the Lakers get in return? They are complete role players. Mikal Bridges is better than every single player that the Lakers brought in.
Bridges and D'Lo are close, dude. D'Lo's putting up 18 a game right now.
And Mikal Bridges puts up 17 and is like miles.
I wouldn't look at points there. I would look at more at impact. And if we're talking impact, they're pretty.
I'm talking about who's a better player because Guac is saying that
they're even, and they're very close and very even, is what I'm saying. So again, I do not hate the Brooklyn pick, but I don't think that they're the winners. I think that the Lakers had the better deadline, along with one other team. I think is very, very close to. I think one other team is very, very close to what the Lakers did. The Nets are up there, but I would not call them the winners of this trade.
Real quick, as a Timberwolves fan myself, I think Mikal Bridges is miles ahead of D'Angelo Russell. I think he's so much. I think he's a much better player than D'Angelo Russell. Freeman, I want to ask you this: the Nets got all those picks. We just dropped you in the front office. What are you doing with all those picks? Are you trading them and trying to win very soon the next few years, or are you actually going to use them and try and rebuild a team through the draft?
I think you're going to have to wait and see. I mean, this is going to be huge free agency this summer. I mean, if they can land a big superstar, then yeah, maybe you can make some moves. I mean, they have very, very good pieces if you throw 1 or 2 superstars in Brooklyn, then that could be a legitimate finals contender. I mean, you look at Claxton, you look at Bridges, you look at Dinwiddie. These are very solid players. I mean, you take any big superstar in the league, put them on the Brooklyn Nets, they're a legit finals contender. So I think if I'm in the front office for the Brooklyn Nets, I kind of have to gauge and see, am I going to have an opportunity to pick somebody up big in free agency and then we can make a finals push? Or if we're going to have to slow play it a little bit, wait a couple of years, and then, become almost like the next Memphis Grizzlies, a team that kind of built from the ground up with the picks that they had.
Do you move on from Ben Simmons?
I think Ben Simmons is fine the way he is. I mean, no one wants him, so might as well keep him. I'm actually not so low on Ben Simmons. He's a great defender. I mean, also, the Brooklyn Nets, I think they could still hang around in the playoffs for the Eastern Conference. They have one of the best defending teams in the NBA. I would say easily top 5, possibly top 3 with Claxton, with Ben Simmons, and with Mikal Bridges. That's the best 3, 4, 5 group of defenders in the entire NBA. So this Nets team is going to be a little pesky. I'm not saying they're going to make any run, but they're not going to fall off the map necessarily.
It'll be very interesting to see. What's up, Nate?
I would say, what were we saying? Play-in potentially?
Well, they're a 5 seed now. I would say, yeah, probably a play-in team. Probably around the 7 or 8 seed in the play-in.
It'll be very interesting to see what Brooklyn does the rest of the season and for the near future. We'll move on to my winner before we move on to those losers. It's Kevin Durant. I think it's pretty easy. I think jumping from 1 5 seed who will plummet down in the East to another 5 seed who is going to skyrocket in the West in the Phoenix Suns. I guess an incredible playmaker. It's been a while since he's had a great playmaker. Chris Paul's playing up 9 assists per game. He has Devin Booker, so he's not going to be relied on heavily in the scoring game. D-Book is an elite scorer, all-star as well this year. Great big man in DeAndre Ayton. It's been a long time since KD has had an awesome big man. I think it'll be really fun to see what he does with DeAndre Ayton, who I think still has a lot of potential. He's having a bit of a down year in my opinion, but he can still really do great things. And some solid role players, Damian Lee, Josh Okogie, among others. So this Phoenix team, in my opinion, is immediately a championship contender. And Kevin Durant is an absolute winner. He went to one of the best teams with one of the brightest near futures in the NBA. He jumped ship from the Nets because he's not going to be a guy that wants to be on a rebuilding team. So, yeah, Kevin Durant, it could not have gone better for him at the trade deadline.
Yeah, I absolutely love that pick. Kevin Durant, the Phoenix Suns were probably a middle-of-the-road playoff contender, middle-of-the-road Western Conference Finals contender. But, you place Kevin Durant there, they're a legitimate finals contender. I said it earlier. They're, in my opinion, the best team in the league going forward. And this is why Kevin Durant, he's so underappreciated, in my opinion. And I think the way that he can kind of form into whatever his team needs, you look at how he played with that Golden State Warriors team. That team was phenomenal. They were a dynasty before Kevin Durant came, and he was able to kind of morph into whatever they needed. He became the superstar under their terms. And I think that's going to work the same exact way in Phoenix. You look at other superstars, you look at LeBron. LeBron, he needs to dominate the ball a little bit more. Not that that's better or worse, but Kevin Durant is way more flexible, and he's really going to work in Phoenix Suns organization. So I think not only is Kevin Durant one of the biggest winners of the trade deadline, I would say the Phoenix Suns as a whole are up there too, because now this team can really make a finals push.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. The team that I think is very close with the Los Angeles Lakers for the winners has to be the Phoenix Suns. Matt really just took all my points right away. Again, just a mid-level playoff contender, and now they're a finals contender. And what's better than that?
Yeah. Hey, you could say, they gave up their future. What are we playing for? We're playing for rings here. Mm-hmm. So if you want to get a ring, go out and get it. That's my exact point. So we'll move on to some teams. There were a lot of teams that improved. Some teams didn't get much better, maybe even got worse. So, Nate, I'll throw it to you first. Who is your biggest loser from the trade deadline?
It's going to be the Bulls. The Chicago Bulls did absolutely nothing this trade deadline. Lonzo Ball is now rumored to be out for the rest of the season. You have Zach LaVine, who's having a relative down year. DeMar DeRozan basically carrying this team by himself. And then they have role players who, I would probably just say that you could have traded them and their picks. They still have quite a few picks left. You probably could have gotten maybe a point guard who could fill in Lonzo Ball's spot until he comes back, or maybe you go for an upgrade at center. They needed to do something, as they have, I think it was 4 or 5 guards on that roster who can play quality minutes on any other team. But right now they're running, I believe it's like an 11-man with 4 guards on the roster without Lonzo Ball playing already. I think that says enough for it.
Yeah, and Nate, I really agree with you there. I think the Bulls are one of the biggest losers of the trade deadline. They're sitting at the 9 seed in the East. They're not going to compete for anything with those big blue chip teams in the East. So why not blow it up a little bit? Zach LaVine, he's a great young talent. I mean, he has a lot of trade value. Why wouldn't you deal him and start to revamp this franchise similar to how the Brooklyn Nets just did it? So I would say they're the biggest loser because they just sat back and watched everyone else make big moves. It's not like they didn't have pieces to deal. They had players that big time teams would want. I'm sure the Lakers would have loved to add Zach LaVine to that roster if they had the opportunity to, but the Bulls just held on. I don't understand it. So I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, Frida, I completely agree with you too. I think they're the biggest loser just because of the potential that they had at the trade deadline. I mean, you look at teams like the Celtics and the Bucks, like they're pretty stuck in their ways. They know they have a great team. Don't need to make a ton of moves. But man, the Bulls, they could have done so much for their future here, and they just decided not to for whatever reason. So Jock, I'll throw it to you next. Who is your biggest loser?
Yeah, so I have a problem with this team because they're just stuck in the middle of mediocrity right now. They just didn't do anything. And that team is the Toronto Raptors in the East. Currently sitting at the 11th seed in the East. I don't think anyone realized that they were that low in the standings. They're currently the 11th seed. They just didn't do anything. I felt like there was a lot of teams that wanted Pascal. I felt like OG Anunoby was rumored to be traded for a while. So this team just did absolutely nothing. They didn't trade for a star, and they didn't get rid of their stars. They just sat back and are sticking with the team that they have, which isn't bad, but it's not good either. Pascal is a star, is going to make his first or second All-Star appearance this year off of injury reserve. I mean, he's great, but this team has a ton of potential. They could have traded. They could have grabbed somebody, and the fact that they just didn't do anything to me just kind of baffles me. And this Raptors front office, Matt talks about teams where their direction isn't known. This Toronto's Raptors front office, this direction just confuses me. They haven't done anything or have shown any direction they want to go in.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I could not agree more. I mean, if you look at the Raptors team, they have a lot of really young talent that they can build around, but Fred VanVleet, Pascal Siakam, they're aging a little bit. So I think everyone knows that they really had no opportunity to make a move. It would be stupid for them to go all in to try to win, an NBA championship this year. This is clearly not their year. But I don't really see who they could have dealt besides OG Anunoby. I mean, OG Anunoby.
Pascal to the Lakers.
Pascal, he's 28 years old. The market wasn't really begging for Pascal Siakam. OG Anunoby was commanding multiple first-round picks from teams like the Memphis Grizzlies, and yet we're passing up on that. I mean, OG, he's a very good player, but he is way better in a situation like the Grizzlies, like the Lakers, like the Pelicans. Like, that is the type of guy, that's the type of situation he will thrive in. He's going to get his prime washed over in Toronto because they're not going to be competing for anything. They're not going to have any star players that command the ball. I don't really see where the direction of the Toronto Raptors is. I don't really see where they're going, so I agree with you there.
Yeah, and I'll add on to that. I couldn't agree with you guys more, too. I mean, because you got a guy like OG Anunoby where you could trade VanVleet and Siakam and guys like that to get some picks, maybe surrounds him for the future. But then you could also go the route of trying to win now with Siakam and VanVleet. I wouldn't have gone that route, but like you said, Jock, they just didn't even pick a route. They're just sitting pretty with the team that they have, which is not the right move at all. You got to pick one side or the other. They try to do both, and it is not going to work out for them right now or for the future. Nate?
I was actually going to say the exact same thing you said, Ben. Like, they didn't pick on either side. They either, make a push where I would probably trade OG Anunoby for maybe someone who can, I wouldn't say better fit than him, but at least help them out somewhat more and try to get more depth, because I would say maybe they're lacking depth in terms of guard play. But even then, like, they just sat back and did nothing. Preferably what I would have done is I would probably just let them more go towards the future route, trade Pascal Siakam and VanVleet and try to get picks or, maybe get a young player in return, but they did absolutely nothing. And that probably hurts them the most. I would say not as bad as the Bulls, but definitely top 3 for worst deadlines this year.
And Jock, I know there's someone else who you thought were losers at the deadline. So who else do you want to add here?
And the fact that the New York Knicks just refused to make a big move just baffles me again. One of the biggest market in all of, other than the Lakers, in all of basketball. The New York Knicks are 100% one of the losers of this trade deadline. The Knicks for years have been rumored to get big name players. This deadline, Knicks were rumored to maybe make a move with Zach LaVine, maybe to trade for OG Anunoby. There's so many big guys that the Knicks could have traded for, and they get Josh Hart for Cam Reddish, who I think has tons of potential. Cam Reddish just needs a chance to shine, needs valuable minutes on a good team, and Cam Reddish can be a very good player. I think I said it when.
But it wasn't going to be the Knicks, though. That's the problem.
That's what I'm saying. The Knicks didn't give him the time that he needed. Cam Reddish has oodles of potential. Cam Reddish could be a great player. And I'm not saying Josh Hart's bad, but the Knicks, again, just another team that I feel like are stuck in the middle. I'm not very high on Julius Randle. I think Jalen Brunson is great. But, like, the Knicks, just another team. The direction is unknown. We're not going to compete for a title. We're, like, a mid-tier playoff team. So I don't get why the Knicks. It's a weird mix of players, and then you trade for Josh Hart, who's just around the same level as every other player on the New York Knicks. It's weird to me, and I don't like what they did.
Brandon?
I'm gonna have to kind of disagree with some of the things that you said, but I kind of agree with the overall thing of what you said. I don't understand the Cam Reddish aspect. He's getting 22 minutes a game and is shooting 30% from three, which is awful. He's only giving you 8 points a game. So why does he deserve a bigger role? Like, what has he shown that deserves a bigger role? He's 20 minutes a game, giving you 8 and incredibly inefficient shooting.
Because he's on the ball. He's on the floor with one of the biggest ball hogs in the NBA. And
he's getting his touches. He's just not making his shots. That's the issue.
Cam Reddish is also a very young player and has not, again, this is like the first season where he's had decent minutes. And again, I get what you're saying. His stats are not that great. I'm not saying that, but he's still a very young player figuring out his game. He just needs more time to improve, and the Knicks weren't going to give him that time.
I think that is the right move by the New York Knicks. I mean, what has Cam Reddish really shown that what has he shown that suggests he's going to be a impact player for a winning NBA basketball team?
He hasn't shown much. He's very young.
So that's exactly my point.
No, that's fair. That's fair.
Move on.
I'll be honest, Jock, I'll back you real quick. I know Cam was a big prospect coming out, so I think they're kind of still treating him as if he's just out of college. I know he's played a couple years, hasn't proven much, but I think they're still hopeful about the tools that he has and how they could build on that.
To be hopeful is fine. My problem is saying when you say that he needs some more minutes, like that's not the issue. He needs some more years maybe to develop. If you say that, all right, like I can give you a couple more years to develop him and see if he can become a serviceable player in the NBA. He does not need more minutes. Giving him more than 22 a game that he's getting and he's really not performing too well, very inefficient, points per game, very, very low. My question would be, why are we giving him more minutes when he's not really giving any production back? And then my problem with what you said about Zach LaVine, OG Anunoby, it would have made no sense for the Knicks to make either of those moves. They have no chance to do anything in the playoffs this year. Why would they go for an OG Anunoby, for a Zach LaVine? Because you would more than likely have to dump picks for that. You would more than likely have to dump RJ Barrett for that, and Obi. Like you know what I mean? You would have to deal a lot of your pieces for a guy that's really not going to make a huge impact to your franchise immediately. You're not really going to win anything right now with Zach LaVine or OG Anunoby. So why would you sell the farm to become maybe a 4 seed in the East? It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, that's why the Knicks are just in this position of just mid-tier team. I mean, the Knicks can try and trade for players, but they're not going to win a championship when Julius Randle is the number one option. It just isn't true. RJ Barrett is just so inconsistent, and just watching him down the stretch of games just has not been fun as a Knicks fan. He just cannot perform in big-time situations, RJ Barrett. He's had a decent season this year, but, I mean, the Knicks are just stuck in this land of mediocrity, and it just isn't good to watch.
So, Freeman, will move over to your biggest loser from the trade deadline.
Yeah, for me, I think the biggest loser is very clearly the Denver Nuggets. I mean, you're looking at this Western Conference, and it just got crazy. I mean, it was already a loaded Western Conference. Now you add the Dallas Mavericks, which we'll touch on in a little bit. They are a legit contender now once they added Kyrie. You look at the Suns, I think they're the best team in the league right now after they added Kevin Durant. The Nuggets just did absolutely nothing. And to be completely honest with you, I mean, I would take the Grizzlies ahead of them in the playoffs. I would take the Mavericks ahead of them in the playoffs. I would take the Suns ahead of them in the playoffs. I think if the Warriors play the Nuggets in the playoffs, I would still take the Warriors. And on top of all this, on top of them making no big moves, they Bones Highland,
Yeah,
dealing
that's
him
exactly
for
what I
two
was about to bring
second-round picks?
Yeah.
Is that what we're doing right now? If you're talking like a redraft, Bones Highland, in my opinion, is worth a back-end lottery pick. He's a very strong, bright star who, again, could thrive once he receives more minutes. Why are we dealing him for 2 second-round picks? I just don't understand it. To deal him for a piece that'll help them win now because they have a legitimate chance to make some noise, sure. But when you're dealing him for 2 second-rounders, why are you playing for the future when your time to win is now? I don't understand.
Guac?
Yeah. I wanted to bring up Bones Highlands so much. He is so underappreciated in this league. Bones Highlands is a very good young player, averaging 13 a game. I mean, he was a big help for Nikola Jokic and one of his leading guards on that Nuggets team, and they're just dealing him for dirt cheap. I mean, and the Nuggets were supposed to be one of the top seeds in the West. They have probably the best player in basketball at the moment in Jokic. He's been going crazy lately. I don't understand it. They did nothing. I couldn't agree with more Freed here. They definitely had one of the worst trade deadlines.
Yeah, so I'll kind of keep my loser on the same track. Like Friedman said, I think it's just every other West team besides the Suns and the Mavericks. I mean, especially the contenders. You want to talk the Nuggets, like Friedman said, the Grizzlies, the Kings, the Clippers even, maybe the Warriors. Like, all those teams, their odds of winning the championship or making the championship just plummeted. I mean, the Suns, like Friedman said, might just be the best team in the NBA. The Mavericks, who we're going to try and get to right after this, added Kyrie Irving, which makes them better. Still some stuff to talk about there. But I mean, like you said, the Nuggets might have even gotten worse. The Grizzlies just kind of stood there and did nothing. So, man, every other West team is very scared and should be very scared for the near future. Ja?
Yeah, I don't think Ja's fine in the West anymore. I think that's the reason why all this happened. He's definitely not fine in the West anymore. I'll say that.
He's
was
definitely
never
not,
fine in the
He's
West.
had some really good
He was
teams at
never
the top, and now
fine.
the West does too. Sorry, friend, what were you saying?
Now, as a Grizzlies fan, he was never fine in the West. I mean,
Yeah.
look at the Nuggets. I think maybe I don't think this changes very much. I think the Grizzlies are around like the fourth best team in the West at this point, maybe the third. I think the Suns jump ahead of them, but other than that, I don't think it changes too much. I'd still take the Grizzlies over the Mavericks. We'll touch on that shortly.
Yeah, let's just touch on it right now. I mean, where do the Mavericks fall? We're doing this list of winners and losers. Obviously, get a superstar in Kyrie, but how does that fit together with a guy and a ball-dominant guy like Luka?
I don't know if it does. Luka Doncic is one of the most ball-dominant guys in the NBA. Kyrie Irving isn't really the greatest off-ball guy in the NBA. He had the ball in his hands predominantly in Brooklyn. I don't know how this is going to work, to be completely honest with you. It's a great addition for Luka, but I don't know if this is such an overwhelmingly great move by the Mavericks. I think it's good. They added a superstar. You can't be mad at that. But is this like skyrocketing them into finals contention immediately, like serious finals contention? I'm not so sure yet.
Ja?
I couldn't agree more. The second Kyrie Irving was traded to the Mavericks, I was jumping around. Again, as I said in the show, I'm a huge advocate for Luka Doncic. I wanted to win MVP. I think he's one of the best players in the league. But I don't know if it's going to work either. I'm not really sold on it. Kyrie Irving, again, a superstar. But I would have rather seen the Mavericks trade for a guy that could space the floor, like a bigger forward. Like, kind of like he has Christian Wood. Christian Wood's very good, but something like that can maybe shoot the ball a little bit better than Wood. Like a really solid number 3. OG Anunoby, I felt like would have been a really good fit in the Mavericks system. Don't get me wrong. Kyrie Irving's a great player, but I couldn't agree with Matt more. I don't know how this is going to work with these two guys when they're both demanding the ball a lot of the times in Dallas now.
Yeah, Nate, any opinion you might have on how Kyrie fits in with Dallas?
I'm questioning it whether or not it would work because Luka is known for passing the ball. I'm pretty sure he's averaging near 10 assists a game. So I don't think Kyrie will, lose touches that much. It's just going to be a matter of who will primarily take the ball up the court.
There's no question in that.
Yeah, it should be Luka.
It's going to be Luka, but the problem is, will Kyrie want to pass that role?
Kyrie's not going to have an option. Luka Doncic is
No.
taking the ball up the court. He's a top 3 player in the NBA. He's the owner of Dallas, to be completely honest with you.
Yeah.
He's the savior of Dallas. So, like, he's the guy. Kyrie Irving is, the sidekick in this situation, which is why I don't understand this. Luka Doncic, the assist numbers are high, but he dominates the ball more than anybody else in the NBA. The ball is always in his hand. And that's not necessarily a bad thing for him, but it's bad when you try to compare it, or when you try to compare how it was before to how it's going to be now with Kyrie Irving in town. I just don't know what that adds to the Dallas.
What I would say is I don't want to see it end up like how the Hawks have Dejounte Murray and Trae Young, because I feel like that would be the worst outcome.
I think it would be different just because I think both players are a lot better than like Trae Young and Dejounte Murray are a lot worse than Kyrie and Luka. But so I think they'll be able to make it work just because of how talented they are. But I think it will be kind of similar where you see the play styles clash a little bit, and it's not exactly the result that a lot of people were expecting.
Yeah, and guys, I'm the same way. I don't even think we have to guess about how this might go. And did we not just see what happened with Kyrie and KD in Brooklyn? I mean, it was a dumpster fire. It was a train wreck. So, I mean, now you give him an even better scorer, an even better player, in my opinion, as well, in Luka Doncic. And yes, he could pass the ball, but I feel like he does that just to work it around to his different role players. And I think Mark Cuban, he was definitely desperate to get another star on the team. In my opinion, this was not the star. I would have loved to see a guy like DeAndre Ayton, some type of big who Luka could use on the pick and roll, so who could score enough when he needs to. But, man, Kyrie, I mean, I feel like it's just a cancer in the locker room, and I don't see it going as well as Dallas thinks it will.
I absolutely agree. And this is my problem with super teams in the NBA nowadays. I said before, the Golden State Warriors, when they had their dynasty years, I mean, I think they're falling out of that now. But that was a super team, but it was perfect. Draymond Green was that defender, was that glue guy in the starting lineup. Klay Thompson was the 3-and-D. Steph Curry was the superstar. And then when Kevin Durant was there, he was the co-superstar for the years that he was there. You look at the Suns right now. I said before, Chris Paul, great distributor. Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, the superstar scorers. And then DeAndre Ayton, that's your big man. Yeah. I like those super teams. Everything makes sense. Throwing guys together that are all-stars, it doesn't work. You look at the Timberwolves this year, Cat and Rudy Gobert. Like, what happened? That worked out awful. You look at the Brooklyn Nets. You threw superstars together. What happened? That ended up awful. You look at the Atlanta Hawks, Dejounte Murray, Trae Young. That's not looking so good either. So I feel like this is a case of blindly throwing superstars together and expecting something good to happen. It doesn't work like that in the NBA.
And real quick before we move on, the Timberwolves, the perfect example there. Anthony Edwards making his first All-Star appearance this year. Young, budding superstar. Cat's going to be injured all year, or most of the year at least, and Gobert just has not played well in Minnesota. That is the perfect example, in my opinion, for this year. Just throwing a bunch of guys together, and it just doesn't work.
Yeah, and Friedman, before we move on, Friedman, I think you made an incredible point. I know basketball is moving towards, it's positionless, just get hoopers and put them on the same team. But, man, you got to use some common sense. I mean, the puzzle pieces have to fit together. You can't just throw the same type of player and have three of them on the same team. Shout out to the Brooklyn Nets. We just saw how that went, like I mentioned before. Now you got Luka and Kyrie. No doubt it makes them better. I don't doubt that at all. But it's not going to turn them into immediate championship contenders. It's not going to guarantee a championship in the near future, which I think Mark Cuban thinks it will. Mm-hmm. So we'll move on to those all-star snubs. Jock just mentioned Anthony Edwards. We got some guys that didn't make the game that we really think should have. Nate, I'll throw it to you first. Who should have made the all-star game?
I'm going to go Dejounte Murray from the Atlanta Hawks. I would take him over DeMar DeRozan, not to fault DeMar DeRozan, who's carrying the Bulls team, but I think Dejounte Murray has done more with the Hawks, and he's been probably the best player on the Hawks. I mean, Trae Young not looking very well. Clint Capella's a great rebounder and a great shot blocker, but that's about it. And I think Dejounte Murray is really that core piece that the Hawks probably should look to build around, not Trae Young. But I would probably take him over DeMar DeRozan. But I would like to hear what you guys have to say about your snubs.
Well, I'll talk about Dejounte Murray a little bit. I'm going to completely disagree. I don't think he deserves to be in the All-Star game.
I couldn't agree
whatsoever, if I'm being honest, especially not over a guy like, DeMar DeRozan. And I know DeMar's team isn't the greatest, but, I mean, he's just a flat-out better player this year. Yeah. That's as simple as that. So Dejounte Murray, for me, we were expecting a lot of defense from him this year. Not seeing a ton of that, if we're being honest. He's not as good as a defender as he was in San Antonio. The offense is solid. It's not all-star level, so I don't think he deserves to be there whatsoever, in my opinion.
Couldn't agree more.
I agree with
So-
you. I think Dejounte Murray is having a good year, and it's impressive what he's doing when he's really not having the ball in his hands as much because of Trae Young dominating the ball. But he's still performing at a borderline all-star level, but I don't know if he gets in this year.
So, Jock, we'll move over to your all-star snub.
Yeah. And one of my biggest problems with picking a guard in the East is he didn't even pick the most deserving guard, in my opinion, and that would be Jalen Brunson of the New York Knicks. Jalen Brunson's putting up 23 a game. He's been the best player in the Knicks. I will argue anyone about Julius Randle. I'm just not a fan of him. He made the All-Star game, but Brunson didn't. Kind of baffles me. And the thing that really makes me angry is why is Drew Holiday in the All-Star game? He's averaging 19 a game. I get his team is very good this year, but there are so many other deserving guards that have had much better seasons than Drew Holiday that should be over and playing as a reserve in this All-Star game over Drew Holiday. You look at Brunson, I think Ben has a guy or two that he wants to note. There's just so many other guys, and to me, Brunson's the most deserving out of all of these guards that should be in the All-Star game.
I don't really agree. I don't hate it necessarily, but I don't really agree with him over Drew Holiday.
Why? One reason why. Other than the fact that his team's better. One reason why.
If you give me about 30 seconds, I can explain it.
Go ahead, Brady.
I was in the process of doing. Jalen Brunson has been a slightly better offensive player this year. He's giving you
miles better. He's
giving you 4 more points per game and slightly more.
Way better efficiencies, way better 3-point shooting, and hasn't even been the ball dominant.
Slightly
better. Let Friedman explain it. So go ahead,
Friedman. That's a big part of this whole thing. You got to hear my side of it. Drew Holiday undoubtedly is a better playmaker, better rebounder, better defender, and is on a better team. So Jalen Brunson is a better scorer than Drew Holiday this year. Okay, I'll give you that. I don't think it's slightly. I think he's just better, period, but it's not much better. He's giving you 4 more points per game. He's slightly more efficient. It's not by a huge margin that he's a better scorer, and Drew Holiday does every other aspect of the game better, and his team is winning. So to have Drew Holiday in over Jalen Brunson, I really don't see where there's an issue. It depends what you're looking at. Me personally, I like to look at defense, playmaking, rebounding, and team success over just scoring.
Anything you want to come back with, Jock, or should we just move on?
I'm trying to pull something up real quick.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll put my opinion out there. I think this is extremely close. For you to call it a crime that Drew Holiday is over Jalen Brunson, I think is a extreme exaggeration. Would I have Brunson over Holiday if I had to pick? Yes. But, I mean, once again, it's so close. Drew Holiday, miles better as a defender. Jalen Brunson, in my opinion right now, is a bad defender this season. I don't think he's good as a defender at all, below average. And Drew Holiday, obviously, we know how good of a defender he is. He's having a solid offensive season, what he always does. He doesn't need to score because he has Giannis Antetokounmpo on his team. But he does other things, like Friedman said, rebounding, playmaking, and the team success as well. Once again, I would pick Brunson, but it's just so close that I think having Jalen Brunson being a snub and having him replace Drew Holiday is a bit too much for me.
Just to me, Matt, I don't hate it, but again, Brunson's a way more efficient scorer. We already agreed on that. Drew Holiday's not even averaging more than an assist over Brunson this year. Holiday's averaging 7 flat. Brunson's averaging 6.4. I mean, it's not really that big of a difference. And you're taking rebounding as a guard into consideration. Okay,
1,000%.
I guess.
When it's
as a point guard, I really
1,000%. Drew Holiday is that type of guy. He's a Swiss Army knife type of guy. He is probably the best defending guard in the NBA. He's comparable to Marcus Smart. He's in that tier of defensive guards. Jalen Brunson's defense he's a traffic cone out there. So if you're looking at Drew Holiday, he is miles better as a defender. He's a slightly worse scorer. He's a better playmaker. To say that if you want Brunson ahead of him, I'm not gonna argue. But to say that it's a crime is just wrong.
It's not a crime, but Brunson should be an over Holiday, in my opinion.
All right, that's fair. And Freeman, we'll throw it over to you. You want to switch it up a little bit. Maybe not someone that should have made it, but someone who should be upgraded in the All-Star game.
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander should be a starter in the All-Star game. Should have been a starter from day one in the All-Star game. That is a bit of an abomination. I don't know if it's an abomination. It's more of a give the guy a break. You know what I mean? He's a young guy. He's finally breaking out, and we're still going with the same old thing, throwing Steph Curry in there as the second guard in the West. I don't understand it. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is more deserving of Steph Curry, in my opinion, and it's just I think the whole Steph Curry and Luka, it's a little played out. Give the guy who deserves it, who might not be as big of a name, give him a shot as a starter in the All-Star game.
I mean, guys, do we have any objections to that, or are we just in full agreement?
I would definitely like to have seen Shea over Ja as the replacement for this.
Well, okay, over Ja as a starter, 100% agree. I'm talking over Curry. If you look at them two, absolutely over Curry.
It's close, but this is kind of like Curry's dying down. I would give the nod to Curry. It's very close.
No,
I'm not going to argue it. I don't hate it.
Not dying down. This isn't a storyline thing we're talking about. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is having a better year than Steph Curry, without a doubt. Their numbers are Steph Curry has slightly better offensive numbers. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, more points per game. Steph Curry is slightly more efficient. So offense is about even. Defense, Shai is blowing Steph out of the water. And you want to look at team success, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is taking a dumpster fire Oklahoma City Thunder team, and they are 2 games behind. No, excuse me, 1 game behind of the Golden State Warriors this year in the Western Conference. That is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, without a doubt, deserved a starting spot from day one over Steph Curry. The team's success, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is doing so much more for his team. The offensive numbers are about even. He's a much better defender this year. I'm really not seeing how Steph Curry is a starter over him.
I completely agree. I would put Shai over Ja, over Steph, whoever you want to put him over. He's clearly a starter. I think we can all agree on that. I'll close it out for the All-Star snubs. Jock mentioned that Jalen Brunson is the best guard out of the East that didn't make it. I think it's Darius Garland. And I think it's pretty clear, in my opinion. I think Darius is extremely underrated this year. People are forgetting how good he really is. 22-8 on a top 5 team in the league, or in my opinion, a top 5 team in the league. I know Friedman said otherwise earlier. Also, I like Friedman does. I always take defense into account. In my opinion, a very underrated defender. I'm not calling him all defense level, first or second team, but still very good. 1.5 steals per game this season. And you look at the 22 points per game, you can say, that's not all-star level for a point guard. Donovan Mitchell is tearing teams up this year. So, I mean, Darius Garland, he can't be averaging 26, 27, 28. So 22 with 8 assists is very good on a top 5 team in the league, in my opinion. Darius Garland is a clear player to make the All-Star game. Not starter, not going crazy, but he has to make it this year.
I would agree with you.
Oh, yeah. I don't hate it at all. I think Garland and Brunson were the 2 guys that were right there. I would take them both over Jrue Holiday. I think Matt brings up the point, like, if you're asking who would I rather have, Matt brings up the point. You have to look. It depends on what you're looking for. Brunson's the better scorer. He's the more efficient scorer. But Garland is, I would say, the better defender. He is the better playmaker, and he's on the more winning team. But Brunson, I would say, is doing more for his team than Garland's doing for his team this year. So I think it's very close. I'm fine with either of them. I do not like Jrue Holiday in the All-Star game at all this year.
I agree with what you said, but you're losing me when you're saying that you think that Brunson's more deserving than Garland. I mean, Darius Garland is a more efficient scorer this year. He is a way better playmaker, and he's a way better defender. So your argument of Jrue over – you're telling me that Brunson over Jrue Holiday, that's okay. I can hear that. Garland is the guy. If you're going to make any changes in the East, Garland is the guy who should be in over Jrue Holiday. The Jalen Brunson, Jrue, okay, that's a decent argument, but I think Garland would be the guy if we had to make a switch.
I'm not going to argue because I think it's very, very close. Just for me, I think Brunson's done a little bit more for his team. I get that Darius Garland is playing with Donovan Mitchell this year, and his team has had more success, but Brunson is doing everything for this New York Knicks team this year.
And actually, before we end this off, I just remember I didn't give my player I would have replacing Jock. I don't know if you're going to get mad at me for this. I would have Julius Randle kicked out.
No, I love it. Get Julius Randle out of the All-Star game.
Get him out. He does not deserve an All-Star game.
I get he's averaging 24 points a game. I hate him.
Once again, I mean, like I said, Free brings up defense. I love to bring up defense too. He sucks as a defender.
He's awful. He's awful.
Like, he's terrible.
Can we as a group agree, maybe taking Julius Randle out for Jalen Brunson would be the move, and then
100%. I would take Randle out.
Garland would be the move. So Garland and Brunson in our All-Star team, Garland and Brunson go in, and then we take Randle and Jrue Holiday out. Would that be fair?
Perfect.
Would you aware of that? There we go.
Yeah, that would be perfect out of the East. Then the rosters would be perfect in my opinion.
Hey,
all right, guys, I think this was a very fun episode to come back with. Episode 11. We're finally back. Episodes are going to get more consistent from here on out. It's getting a little crazy with the winter broadcast season. Go Joes. Go heading into the playoffs right now. Bowling, dominating everyone in their path right now. But, so for Nate Perez, Giacomo Imperiale, Matt Freeman, I've been Ben Chowder. Thanks for watching.